B. Frank Network. Content on this production is for entertainment and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, nor is it intended to substitute medical treatment or diagnosis. Seek medical help if you believe that you are suffering from a mental illness or are a threat to yourself or others. By using any or all of the information provided, you do so at your own risk. Any application of the material is at the listener's discretion and is his or her sole responsibility.
Hey everybody, Doc Brian here. We've all heard the expression, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. However, I've never drank lemonade without sugar, and I don't suppose it would be too good. So when life gives you lemons, what do? Well, we make the best of the situation at hand. You may say, Doc Brian, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what I've been dealt. How am I supposed to make good out of this? And the answer is, if you look hard enough, you can find something good in every situation. So I want to challenge you today. Look for the good amongst the lemons. Hey everybody, Doc Brian here, and welcome to Doc Talks, where we talk about people's troubles, trials, tribulations, and hopefully triumphs in life. Now, we haven't had a podcast in a week or so. I have been in the hospital a couple of times now with, what the doctors thought was one thing and I think is another, mastoiditis. But nevertheless, I'm feeling better. And so you may remember our last episode where we had Robert, who suffers from a terminal illness, of which he's in a lot of pain, terminal pain, intense pain, and will lead to the point of maybe even a vegetative state, but still in pain. And he was interested, he was looking at trying to think about physician-assisted suicide. And that episode kind of caused a lot of emotions, feelings to come about. And so I asked some of our listeners to call in and tell us their thoughts, their opinions. And so we're going to hear from them today. I have Kat with me from Grand Rapids, Michigan, a listener. Kat, I want to give you this question here. How do you feel, what is your opinion about medically assisted suicide?
I think it's ultimately should be up to the individual, but I think there should be processes in place before, a doctor performs the action in terms of, one, their age, how young are they? What's their current situation? Why do they need to, go through this procedure? And then it should be sent in for review and approval before the doctors go ahead and just perform the procedure.
Sure. So how do you think you would feel if you had a loved one that met all of that criteria and decided to commit suicide? Would you stand with him, or how would you feel in that situation?
I would be very visibly upset. I don't know how I would feel because I've never been in that situation. I wouldn't like it, but, at the end of the day, I can't control that person's actions or life choices.
Sure. All right. I appreciate you, and thanks for calling in.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye. And I have another caller with me here. Could you just tell me your name and where you're from real quick?
Sure. My name's Joseph Creel Morgan. I'm Choctaw out of Mississippi. Involved Native rights, Native culture issues, things like that for the past 40 years.
All right. And so I want to pose the question to you. Is it ever okay for someone to commit suicide? And I guess I could start by saying, have you ever considered committing suicide as well?
Yes. And I don't mean to smile and say it, but it for a very long time, it was a large part of my world to just kind of think, well, if I just ended myself, all this will go away. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of that sort of stuff going on all through my childhood and most of my adult years, because I wasn't receiving any sort of psychiatric care, because only crazy people go to psychiatrists. But yeah, that was just a part of my depression and partially no personality. What is that?
To have no personality, you could, have borderline personality disorder.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Borderline personality disorder. I was trying to remember the
Yeah.
terms. I'm usually better at it than that. It's very early. But
so how do you feel about, is there ever a point that it's okay for someone to commit suicide?
I have to say, first thing, I am a Christian. I have to base anything that I say on that, on my faith, because that's tied directly to what I believe, which is the Bible. I don't know that I've ever seen a passage specifically against suicide. However, God is or Jesus is the creator. Do we have the right to end something that he begun? Now that sounds real churchy, I know, but that's kind of where my mindset is on that. Do I think, oh Lord, I've had 2 different friends now, both of them gay, that both committed suicide because they were told that they were, one of them's brother was going to hell because he committed suicide. And she wanted to be with him, the person I was talking to. And the other one, it was the same sort of scenario, different family member, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Now, physician-assisted suicide, medical, I don't understand the uproar. It's been going on forever. What it goes under is the easement of pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for a fact they give huge doses of morphine to people that are in their last stage. They're dying, they're in great pain, they're having great anguish, whatever's going on. They dope them up. They try and ease the passing. Now, that would seem to fall under medically assisted suicide, except you're just not calling it that.
Sure. So you think that palliative care can get to a point of where that person isn't cognitive enough to be what we would presume to be alive, that palliative care can be a form of physician-assisted suicide?
I think they're one and the same thing, just different semantics. We try and ease pain and suffering as best we can, especially in the medical field. That's why they do what they do. And I'm sorry, before God, if I can stop someone's pain and suffering or stop them from hurting, and if that helps them pass easier, I have no problem with that. I have way less problem with that than I do with individual suicides, because I'm not sure we have the right to take what isn't ours to give.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Joseph, thank you for calling in today and giving us this insight. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. All right, we have another listener there. Listener, tell us your name and where you're from.
My name is Miranda, and I'm from Oklahoma.
All right. I know some Oklahoma people.
They're great.
Yeah. Have you had someone in your family or a close friend that committed suicide?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you feel internally when you found out this person had taken their life?
Very sad for their family. And just, I don't know, it just really, it took a little bit, even though it was a distant cousin, it's just where they're at is what, because he had 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, it's just really a lot of sadness, very sad.
Sure. So in knowing what that loss is like, even though it was a distant cousin, how would you feel if someone was terminally ill and they decided that they wanted to have physician-assisted suicide? What would be the first thought that would come to your mind in that scenario?
No, but I don't know what I would do, or unless you're in that situation.
Sure.
It's just, you don't know what you do until you're in that situation.
Yeah. Do you think there's ever a reason that it's okay to commit suicide?
No.
Okay. So if someone were to want to have medically assisted suicide or physician assisted suicide, what kind of criteria do you think there should be before that process could be started?
They would have to, not counseling, just a lot of questions. I don't know. It's just a lot of details would have to be known. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you had a family member that was terminal, they were in so much pain, they had gone through a mental evaluation and were found to be of sound mind, and the doctor suspected that they weren't going to live more than 6 months, but that next 6 months were going to be just the most painful that they would ever have, that there's not really any type of medicine that they could give in palliative care that would relieve that pain. Would you then, even as a family member, consider that could be an option for them?
Probably.
Yeah. And it's difficult for us to say probably, because I know in my mind, there isn't ever a reason to try to end our life. But when we put it in that perspective, it's kind of different. Yeah. Well, thank you for calling in and answering our questions. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
You too.
I have with me today a listener, Kyle Nimper, and I believe he's from Washington, D.C. He's a funeral director there. And I want to ask you, Kyle, is it ever okay, in your opinion, to commit suicide?
That's a really interesting question. And I really believe that's up to the individual person that's kind of contemplating that. Usually in general, suicide is not something that we kind of accept as society. There are a lot of different reasons that a person might have, suicidal thoughts or want to commit suicide. For a case where you have like a medically assisted death or someone who is terminal and doesn't have any other options other than to die anyway, I think that's a different kind of, it's a different circumstance. And so in that sort of a situation, I would support that individual's, decision to, in their life, especially if they don't have any quality of life. And when people get toward the end of their lives, we move toward palliative care and that sort of thing to keep them comfortable. And in some cases, there are people that, no amount of palliative care is going to help keep them comfortable. And they're going to lose control of their bodily functions, their ability to move, communicate. And it's just, in a way, it's just a true living hell for them. And that is their only way out of it.
Gotcha. Well, I thank you for joining us here today and giving us your opinion there. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, my name is Dustin Jenkins. I'm an entertainer in theater full-time down here in Central Florida, also a business owner. And so my good friend, Brian Shepard, most of you probably know him as Doc Brian, asked me to chime in on this. I have some strong opinions on this. And the basics of it are this. I'm kind of split down the middle because I personally believe that the person ought to have the right to choose certain things. I feel that we have the right to choose every other aspect of our health care, and in the right circumstance and situation, I would say that I believe a person should probably, especially on end of life care status, like if they're terminal and they want to avoid lengthened pain. The scientific side of me that knows a little bit about medicine. Back in the day, I used to at one time be a paramedic, so I know just enough about medicine probably to be dangerous. But the scientific side of me says that yes, if a person is facing a prolonged period of pain and extended suffering, and in their mind they have it made up that there's no way they're going to avoid that, nor are they going to be able to avoid the inevitable end. Yes, the scientific side of me says that person should have a certain amount of choice in that situation, and that a doctor should be able to help them under those circumstances. My opinion would be that yes, within certain parameters, that would be acceptable. Not sure if that helps a lot in the conversation or the topic that's going on, but that's just my opinion.
All right, now I have one of probably our most faithful listeners, and I know our biggest fan, at least my biggest fan. I have my mom here with me, all the way from Booneville, Arkansas. We were talking on the phone about this subject, and I said, hey, we just need to record this conversation because it's really good, and so she agreed to do that, and I'm grateful for that. But so talking about physician-assisted suicide, what are your immediate thoughts on that?
I don't believe that that's a good idea at all.
Okay.
I'm totally against that.
So, of course, we've had a very close family member that died by suicide. So we know firsthand what it's like to lose somebody who has a mental health issue or crises that ends up committing suicide. So with that in mind, how would you feel if a loved one with a terminal illness who was in much pain, without relief, came and said that they wanted to have physician-assisted suicide?
I would still be totally against that, because I think that if assisted suicide was legal, I think that would lead to more things like, if somebody had a child that was not healthy. As a matter of fact, you and I both know somebody who had babies that were in the hospital a long time. They could have, if assisted suicide was legal, it could lead to even them, if they had decided to terminate that child's life. Not that they would. I know that they wouldn't, but I think it could lead to that kind of thing. Anybody who had not even just a child, but a brother or sister, whatever, that did not have a quality of life, to just go ahead and let them die,
Yeah, and you and I kind of discussed a little bit about how assisted suicide, one of our other callers had stated that assisted suicide is much like palliative care or hospice, in that they keep them comfortable for a period of time until they die. And you stated that you thought that was two separate avenues there. Can you kind of explain that?
Definitely. That's two different things. As a matter of fact, my brother, was in hospice, or not palliative care, but hospice. Palliative care is long-term, but he was in hospice and he was in pain, and they were keeping him comfortable. But that's not the same thing as assisted suicide, because we have self-will. God determines when we die. And if you have assisted suicide, that's not God's perfect will. God will allow you to take your own life, because we have, we're selfish. We want what we want. And I couldn't think of that word right there, Brian, that I was trying to say. But God will allow you to do whatever you want to do. What's the word I'm trying to find?
His permissive will.
Yes, his permissive will. He will let you do whatever you want to. But that does not mean that that is God's perfect will.
Mm-hmm. So if a family member came to you and said, this is what I've decided to do, what steps would you take in trying to get them to do otherwise?
Well, first of all, I would talk to them about what their pain is, what their, what it is that is so bad that they feel like that they needed to end it. And then I would try to get them some kind of help, whether it's a psychiatrist or whether it's a doctor or, whatever it is that they need. And I would pray for them. I would pray for them, God open their eyes that what is it that is so bad that in an instant you would end it when there is a way to get around it.
Well, in the instance of, at least in the 12 states that it is legal for physician-assisted suicide, one of the things is they have to have a terminal illness that their life expectancy isn't more than 6 months. So those are two criteria of the 12 states that allow it. So assuming this person has a terminal illness and assuming that they only have 6 months to live, then what would be the steps?
Whether it's 6 months or whether it's forever, it's still the same thing. It's still, I would try to get some help for them. But again, God gives his permissive will. But what if somebody, like say teenagers, teenagers go through things that we don't even know they're going through. And first thing you know, they have committed suicide over something, a boyfriend or whatever, that if they had just hung on, found somebody to talk to, a lot of times they just need somebody to talk to and understand what they're going through and get better. They could have a better life after they've got through this, but in that instant, they want to kill themselves, and a lot of teenagers do. And if it was legal, how many more would?
Well, following the legalities of it, they would have to at least be an adult. They would have to have a terminal illness, and they would have to have a life expectancy of less than 6 months. So under physician assisted, they wouldn't be able to.
Right. But still.
But I wonder if, and I'm thinking out loud, I wonder if we were so open about physician assisted suicide, if that would make other people think that I can just do it myself and it's okay.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think that would lead to a lot of other things that we don't even want to think about right now. For example, the teenagers, again, when their heart's broken, whether they've been bullied or the boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with them or whatever, if there is assisted suicide, what's to say that later on it's not everybody, not just someone who is in a terminal illness. I just think that assisted suicide would open the door to a lot of things that we can't comprehend right now.
Yeah. There's always that Pandora's box that you open that leads to so many other things. All right. Well, thank you for letting me interview you, and thank you for your thoughts. Now, as I had posted on Instagram earlier today, if you don't follow our social media, make sure to do that. I offered a poll of, do you think it's okay or not okay? And as of right now, 35% say yes, 65% said no. So a little over a third of my followers say that it's okay. So you heard it from Mama. It's not okay.
But yes, you're right. As for Mama, I don't believe it's okay.
All right. I don't know where you may stand on the position of suicide or physician-assisted suicide. And I cannot tell you definitely how I would feel if I had a family member who was considering physician-assisted suicide due to a terminal illness. But I can say that I don't want anyone to suffer. But we cannot always be sure that someone's suffering will in fact be lifelong. And you say, well, there are instances, there are diseases. Yes, there are, but you could be the outlier. You could be the one that a certain treatment, an experimental treatment, proved to be what worked. So I can't say definitively, yes, I am for physician-assisted suicide, or no, I'm not for it, simply because I've never been put in that position. I can, however, tell you that I have had family members that were in hospice or palliative care that I was thankful that they were comfortable when they did pass. It's a hard place to sit. It's a hard thing to try to say, yes, I would, or no, I wouldn't, when you're not the person in that situation. So when we look at it from a psychological standpoint, of the 12 states that do allow it, these people that are seeking this assistance have to go through certain criteria in order to be able to follow through. And one of those criteria is that they must have a psychological evaluation. Now, I would assume that that psychological evaluation is not, are they in a place mentally healthy? Are they in a mentally healthy place that they're not making this out of desperation or out of depression or out of anxiety, of those things? I would assume that that mental health evaluation is simply, are they of a sound mind to make that decision? And when we get to that place, how do we define mentally sound? What are the parameters there? So there's a lot that goes into this. It's just not someone that goes to a clinic, hey, I want this, and they get it. There are a lot of different things that happen. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? I know we had some people call in today, but maybe you have a different opinion. Of course, you can call in to our guest line at 910-777-7239. That's 910-777-7239. You can also reach out on any of our social media. You can find all of those links at the bottom of my website, thedocbrian.com. That's Doc, D-O-C, Brian, BRIAN.com. THEDOC, BRIAN.com. Of course, call us, text us, whatever you do, 910-777-7239. Of course, Doc Talks is a part of the Be Frank Network. You can check out all of our podcasts at BeFrankNetwork.com. Thank you for listening today, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.